everyone. It's high noon on Wednesday, January 13th for the regular Pickens County Board of County Commissioners regular session. I'm still Vice Chair Kelly McNicholas Curry. Also in the room is Commissioner Patty Clapper and Terry Anderson helping us with Zoom with Grassroots. And I'll turn it over to our Chair, Steve Child, who is at home.
Okay, welcome everybody to our to my last regular meeting, which I will open as chairman, and then later on in the meeting we will change seats and Kelly will take over as chairman. So first of all, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There are no additions or deletions to the agenda today.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a public comment at this time? You will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time, and you can get the number at the top of our agenda or on the Grassroots screen.
Steve, I do see one attendee ending in number 8797.
Okay, and I just see that, and I think it's probably Mr. Mulcahy. Lee, are you there? Number 8797, you can speak now.
Terry, do you have to give permission to the caller to speak?
I do. They should have it now.
Okay. So Steve, Terry just gave permission for Lee to unmute himself.
Okay.
There he is.
So, there. Now we got you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Lee Mulcahy, and as y'all know, I'm grateful for many, many things, especially to have any son or daughter to have a mom like I have is just an inspiration. In the midst of a worldwide pandemic where this board just this week, via their representatives, shut down small businesses and indoor restaurants, last Friday, the Aspen Housing Board, APSHA, of which two of you sit on, filed an eviction case as suppressed from the public view against an 85-year-old elderly widow. As her neighbor and as the future chair of this board, Kelly Killer Curry, are you proud of yourself? Recently, James Hoagie, a gentleman you honored several months ago for a Pickens County Service Award, said you are putting Mama Sandy into an early grave. The optics of an out-of-control government, all five of you are Democrats, evicting an elderly widow, a Republican, are frankly disquieting. This is tribalism prima facie, and this tribalism that this board promotes is destructive and divides our community and our nation. All we're asking is to rent the house we built back from you. In your haste to evict us, APSHA broke the law multiple ways, multiple times. This case is on appeal in the Colorado Supreme Court. Previously, your private attorney, Thomas Fenton Smith III, was investigated by the Colorado Supreme Court's Attorney Regulation Council for both dishonesty and conflict of interest. Dishonesty, commissioners, dishonesty. In his response to the Supreme Court, he denied that we ever brought up constitutional concerns with your former employee, now Judge Chris Selden. Is it possible that we could get 3 votes on this board now for peace and compromise to direct your future chair and APSHA representative, our neighbor, to look at renting the house, since she might enjoy sending troops in to drag my elderly mother out or worse? Any of you Democrats besides the current chair, Steve Child, want to help, or would you prefer to see us exterminated? Notably, our sheriff gave me a hug just right in front of the library and called this whole thing a witch hunt. His words. APSHA waited over 3 years while I was building the house to tell me my thousands of hours of work on the house and my art didn't count. That, friends, stinks. It stinks to high heaven. My late father had a stroke in building our house. We are more than willing to pay the new fines you passed and you recently enacted to do community service. And as you are fully aware, in settlement, all cards are on the table. This case is on appeal, and I'd like to read what our attorney wrote the Aspen Times. Very briefly, from a broader perspective, the Mulcahy's case sets a worrisome precedent. As it stands right now, it effectively has set precedent that APSHA can violate its own regulations, then sue people in state court to enforce its improper actions, then disregard all of its procedural obligations in state court, and still obtain an enforceable judgment. Regardless of people's opinions of Lee and the circumstances he's in, the procedural violations that occurred are a threat not just to him, but also any citizens facing a potential regulatory action from APSHA, and more broadly, all individuals going through state court, civil process in general. Thus, we sought certiorari with the Colorado Supreme Court and hope they are willing to review the matter. We pray for this. Thank you so much.
In your comments now, please. Thank you.
Oh,
Well, thank
yes, sir. Thank you so much for the time, and I'll pass the phone, if it's okay, to Mama Sandy.
Okay. Go ahead, Sandy. Sandy, are you there?
My name is Sandy Mulcahy. In 2013, Scott Condon wrote an article in the Times about my husband and my humanitarian work in Kenya. In 2014, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram had a 3-page article on our Kenya mission. In 2015, APSHA began its legal endeavors to take the house we built. They broke the law, sending out a premature notice of violation, then amending its bylaws to cover its deceit, followed by ignoring a court order to hold a required pro se conference. For 5 years, the battle has raged. Aspen could have had a different claim to fame. For an 85-year-old widow, part-time resident here, to have guided Africa Water Wells with God's help to drill 7 water wells, build a medical clinic, have a team of American nurses and doctors offer free clinics, train women in work skills to make a living, donate laptops with educational programs for local schools, provide addiction counseling, and distribute to families 80 5-gallon buckets with Sawyer filters, providing millions of gallons of clean water. During the pandemic, I wrote Into Africa, the God story of Africa Water Wells, the first shipment of books to arrive next week. At a city prayer breakfast in Arlington, where I live part-time, a city of 350,000 plus, the mayor praised the ministry of Africa Water Wells. But Aspen chose not positive publicity, but instead last week a suppressed secret eviction lawsuit was delivered. Why? Why secret? Ponder that. Evicting during a pandemic and after applying for the vaccine 3 times with Pitkin County with no appointment, I suspect some pro-APSHA person crossed my name off the list. I received an email today from my doctor in Dallas that he has a vaccine for me, but that requires being driven 16 hours to Texas and 16 hours back. Since APSHA has targeted me, the rules have changed from no eviction to paying a fine. What is wrong with our renting the house we built? If the forced entry requested by Tom Smith doesn't kill me, the COVID-19 eviction during a pandemic will snuff out the work of incredible value in Kenya. The Minister of Parliament from Kenya and 2 county governors in Kenya have supported and entertained me these 10 years. As Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. That is the choice the Board of County Commissioners has taken. God have mercy on your souls. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Sandy, and I'm sorry your family is in the position you are. I truly am. Okay, let's see, are there any other members of the public wishing to comment? I don't see anybody else has called in at this point. We'll wait a few seconds and see if anyone else phones in. Okay, not seeing anybody else phoning in, so I'm going to close the public comment period and bring it back to the board for commissioner comments.
Do you see Patty?
Patty.
Yeah, first of all, I want to wish everyone a happy, healthy, and safe 2021. I know things have started out on a rocky foot, which we were hoping we would have a whole new year ahead of us. So let's just keep our thoughts and our prayers in mind as we move forward, and hopefully the ship will find an even keel here and we can move forward into 2021 on a better note here soon. I am going to not make comments about what happened at the Capitol, the United States Capitol building last week, because I believe my fellow Commissioner Kelly has prepared some probably, well, I know, very articulate comments, and I'm going to let her speak on behalf of myself and perhaps other members of the Board of Commissioners. So thank you, and please, everyone out there, stay safe and be well.
Thank you, Patty. Kelly, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure, I'm happy to. And I'll just echo Patty's sentiment to Happy New Year. We ended the year really hard and we've started the year really hard. You know, gosh, it is tough. It's really hard to see a positive end to all this. You know, I remember a time, and I have to look for hope wherever I can find it, and, you know, in memories and in looking forward. And I just think back to when this all started in the pandemic, and we saw signs supporting our healthcare workers, all pulling together, trying to cheerlead each other on and take care of each other. And I think we need to get back to that a little bit. You know, it feels like there's winners and losers here, and we all just have to pull together, because I don't think nobody's being targeted. You know, we're all trying to support each other as best we can for the health of our community. And, you know, I believe that, and I believe that, you know, we can reflect that in our care for each other. And so that's how I'm going to try and move forward into these next tough months and look forward to a brighter mid-year. You know, I did prepare a statement that I'll just read. You know, we're 1 week out from the attacks on the structures and symbols and institutions of our democracy, and we are 1 week away from what I hope is the peaceful transition of power in our country with the inauguration of our next president. So, you know, I join many others that admonish the insurrectionists that wish to undermine America, her history, traditions, and laws. Democracy is composed of both the scaffolding of laws and rules, as well as the culture of norms and attitudes that demand transparency and accountability. I believe that we continue to have reasons to be proud of our democracy, even as I am astonished and brokenhearted at the movement to destroy America's pride. Our rules and requirements remain strong. In the face of the effort to stop the counting of our duly ascribed electoral votes, the system did not break, and it rightfully delivered the election to President-elect Joe Biden. In the face of the pandemic, voters demanded and received better access to the ballot, expanded voting opportunities, and they cast their choices in historic numbers never before seen. I believe the individual elections that were conducted around the country were the most transparent, accurate, and accountable elections ever held. Our election administrators and volunteers are the best trained and most professional than ever before. The public knows more about how elections are run than they did in the past, and that transparency is good for everyone. Democracies have winners and losers, and democracies must ensure that the winners rightfully win and that the losers squarely lose. There are checks and balances to ensure this, including rulemaking processes, powers invested in state legislatures, and finally, a multi-tiered court system to hear and adjudicate alignment with the laws. Those who are attacking our democracy suffer from their inability to lose squarely. While the Declaration of Independence compels that to secure our unalienable rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute a new government. And then later it goes on to say, when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is the men's right, it is their duty to throw off such government. However, in our democracy, which I believe remains strong, consent of the governed in a democracy comes down to 50% plus one in most cases, and losing an election is a far cry from despotism. The insurrectionists who favor white supremacy, disinformation, and violence are at complete odds with America and the rightful ways that our society has demanded equivalent multiracial access to the ballot, transparency, and a peaceful transition of power. Should the insurrectionists wish to plead their case, they can lobby their legislatures to limit access to voting rights, promote their candidates, and sue on the outcomes. But democracy requires that they accept their loss. I too lost in this election. Representative Boebert was not my choice. Nonetheless, I have to hope that she succeeds in representing Congressional District 3 in Colorado. So far, I am not heartened. Boebert has started her days promoting the disinformation and violence that I believe true Americans must reject. She's acted in the most partisan of manners. She claims election improprieties in states other than her own, where the entire system of checks and balances were exhausted in opposition to her candidate. Representative Boebert has been admonished by many in her district already, so I was not sure if I would be inclined to comment today. But I take her behavior personally, and I am deeply offended. I've made much of my career out of promoting legitimate democracies. I ran secure elections in this community. I've trained those in other countries who've wished to strengthen their own democratic processes. I served in the Peace Corps overseas in order to represent the democratic traditions that is the pride of America. The country I served in was no stranger to coups. However, those coups were always to depose an authoritarian who would not step down after a peaceful and correct, proper election was held. It seems now I should turn to them as a symbol of democracy. Last Wednesday was an absolute low in my feelings of pride for our country. I'm offended that Representative Boebert's attacks on democracy attack our democracy here in Colorado and in our community. Our county clerks have run exceptional elections, and the results are true and accurate. The clerk of Garfield County, where Boebert lives, is someone who I respect and admire deeply, and that county rightfully delivered the results of the election, which was in fact in favor of Joe Biden. Boebert must represent all of those in Congressional District 3, including those who did not vote for her or her guy. I understand that Representative Boebert is under tremendous pressure by those who would demand a partisan reaction to the election, including violence. She must know that in Pickens County, we demand that she support the rightful outcome of the election, that she denounce violence of all measure, and we will ensure her safety when visiting here. We have serious work to do, and we need a serious Congresswoman alongside us. Our work to improve our airport, pursue wild and scenic designation, and protections of our public lands are bipartisan issues. She is called on to represent all of Congressional District 3. That call includes demands for her to support efforts to renounce and tamp out hate speech and crimes, to demonstrate transparency over disinformation, and to support democracy over authoritarianism. Anything less from her is un-American. Thank you.
Well done, Kelly.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Kelly. Greg or Francie, do either of you have comments you want to make today? And I will right away. I should have introduced Francie earlier. This is Francie Jacober is our brand new county commissioner. She was sworn in yesterday, along with Greg Pochman and myself had the swearing-in ceremony, and so welcome, Francie, to the Board of County Commissioners to your first regular meeting. And Francie has to leave to go to some training here in a little while, but she can be with us for part of our meeting today. Greg, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kelly. I appreciate you articulating that so well. Before I came to the meeting today, I was listening to the live feed, the live stream from what's happening in the U.S. House right now while there are arguments regarding the impeachment. And it feels as if we're living some incredible history. And actually, while I've been horrified by the events that precipitated this, I'm also, I think it'd be a great exercise for anybody to go back and review the speeches and the arguments that are being made regarding the impeachment. It's history that's going to be with us forever, and it's fascinating. While contemplating what could have happened is terrifying. And so anyway, it's very important stuff, and I hope people tune into that. Regarding our congressman from Western Colorado, I just wanted to point out, I appreciate what Kelly said, and I know there's a growing list of maybe 68 or 70 Western Slope electeds who are sending a letter to Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy regarding a censure or an investigation into the activities of Ms. Boebert. And as somebody else pointed out, that perhaps what we should do is appoint her to a committee that looks into extremist right-wing militia groups, so she's forced to confront it and speak about it in public. I thought that was an interesting suggestion. But that's it for me for the day. Actually, locally, I would love to say that there has been a lot of pain locally regarding the closure of the restaurants, the closure of indoor dining. They're not closed entirely, but I know there's been a lot of vitriol, a lot of pain. There's been a lot of misinformation and innuendo directed at the entire Board of Health and our board as well, and anybody who disagrees with keeping the restaurants open. And all I can do is express our empathy and our sorrow that it had to come to this with the restaurants. And I'm also want to say that we're looking for every possible way we can to push back and to suppress this spread of this virus. And certainly it's not being done with any vindictive or unfairness. It's a matter of finding a way to stop the transmission of the virus from one human being to another. And we're going to continue doing that, and I'm hoping we see results very soon and that we get on top of this thing. I think that's it for me for the day. I know there'll be a community meeting tomorrow evening, and I might be chairing that on the same topic with the Board of Health. But stay tuned. Thanks.
Okay, Francie, do you want to make any comments on your first opportunity here? We can't hear you, Francie. I have to show my T-shirt that I was given yesterday. You're on mute. You actually aren't on mute, but we can't hear you.
Terry, do you have any suggestions for Francie?
She's on her laptop.
Is there a mic that should be plugged in?
No, Francie, if you can hear me, you might want to try to just exit the Zoom meeting and rejoin. That's the best tip I can give you for the moment.
Okay. And while Francie's doing that, I want to make some comments. This morning, when I was looking through my email, I received my notice to get my COVID vaccination this week. And I started crying right away because, to me, you know, we've all been so patient for so many months, trying to, you know, wearing our masks and maintaining the social distancing and staying at home. It has been a long haul, and we have a long haul still in front of us. But to me, getting the vaccination is the light at the end of the tunnel. So, and kind kind of in response to Sandy Mulcahy, there still are well over 1,000 people in Pickens County age 70 and above who would not have received a notice to get a vaccination this week because we don't have enough vaccine in yet. But there are about, I think, 1,100 or so will be getting a notice this week to get the vaccination. And I urge everyone to get signed up to get the vaccination. And when your opportunity comes, to go ahead and get vaccinated against the COVID virus. The reports out of the United Kingdom and Ireland are really alarming in relation to the new variant of the virus that they have there. Their incident rates are going vertical, like exponential vertical right now, just shooting up. This variant of the virus isn't any more deadly, but they have so many more people getting the virus that their death rate will be going up in those countries. They say that the vaccine will protect people against the variant of the virus that is in England right now. And so it's so important for people to get vaccinated when you get the opportunity. And I know it's going to take months until everybody in the community has the opportunity to get vaccinated, but do so at your first opportunity. Once you are vaccinated, it's extremely important to continue wearing your mask and maintaining social distancing, because even though you might be immune to the virus, you could potentially catch it from someone and pass it on to someone else without you actually getting sick. That's part of the science I don't think they're sure on yet, but in an exercise of caution, they say anybody who gets vaccinated should continue to practice all of the care in preventing the spread of the virus. So to me, that's the light at the end of the tunnel, is when so many more of us can start getting vaccinated. And I hope everybody follows the advice and can stay healthy in the meantime. And we've been very lucky in this community because the community has responded very well, and we've actually, we're a pretty darn healthy community, and we've had very few people die from the virus here. I hope we can keep it that way. I know it's hard on the restaurants, having the public health order, putting them into the red restrictions. I hope this only lasts for a couple of weeks if the whole community works together and we can move out of the red zone back into the orange zone, and I think if we all work together, we can achieve that. In the meantime, if you want to eat out at a restaurant, you can order takeout, or you can do outdoor dining, which is tricky in the wintertime, but in some cases it's possible, especially during the daylight hours when it's a little bit warmer outside. So I urge people to take advantage of those opportunities to continue supporting our local restaurants where you can. So thank you, everybody. Anyone else have any further comments?
Steve, I just want to add something to the vaccines. I think people need to know too that the vaccines are available to primary residents of Pickens County. So if you're here as part-time, you'll have to look at applying for vaccines in your county of primary residence. I don't think that's changed yet, because that's how we're able to vaccinate people based on our census data, and then the people who have been applying online to get in line for vaccines based on their age groups and their priority groups. The other thing is we had a question asked about the traveler affidavits. Proof of a vaccine is nice, but people at this time, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, are still being required to test prior to coming to Pickens County as part of the traveler affidavit. And that is because there's still some concerns over the efficacy of the vaccines, and while they may be 100% for some populations, that may not be true across the board. So I wish I could give you a hotline number to verify any of your questions or information. The best I can do is refer people to the pickenscounty.com website, click on COVID, and then there's information about testing, about vaccines, about data, et cetera, all available to the public for their education. So thank you, Steve.
Okay, Kelly?
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to clarify some inaccurate information that we heard about APSHA's fines and violations policy that was newly instituted. So, APSHA still retains recourse for evictions. That has not gone away with the implementation of the new fee and fine schedule. It has just allowed for less egregious violations to go through a rectification process and a fine process. However, violations can accelerate through the fine and fee schedule and beyond to still allow APSHA that recourse for evictions should they need to. And so I do want the community to understand that this fine and fee schedule allows for greater opportunity for residents and tenants to rectify their violations, but ongoing violations, will continue to be pursued through the, regulatory process. So, thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I just to follow up on Patty's point, if second homeowners do inquire, I've got the paragraph right here in front of me so people understand. It says, Pitkin County will continue to evaluate eligibility and open up vaccinations to all individuals 70 and up, including second homeowners and long-term renters, as we receive additional allocations. And that's the rub. The allocations we had this week were around, I think, 1,175 total. And that's not going to be enough to get our permanent residents. Once that's done, I think, all we can say is to keep checking with the website. And if we get more, I know Jill Ryan said that she'd try to get the full 1,500 doses as soon as, if they became available in the near future, but we don't know when. So all we can really tell second homeowners or long-term renters is to stay in touch, keep checking, and hopefully we'll get to everyone sooner rather than later.
Okay, thanks for those clarifications, Kelly and Greg. Francie, do you want to try your mic again and see if it's working?
How's that?
Perfect, awesome.
Okay, all right. Well, I just wanted to say to everybody, I'm really honored to be serving you as a commissioner. I know I have big shoes to fill with George leaving, and I know this is a really difficult time. The Board of Health decision was not made easily, and people are full of empathy. So if you are feeling the pinch and you feel like it's unfair, I just want you to know that we are all caring about you, and we're hoping that we can get to the 5-star certification as soon as possible for the lodging as well. So, we do feel your pain. We're not separate from the community. We're part of the same community you're in. And I appreciate Kelly's comments about the insurrection and about Boebert, and I agree with her totally on everything she said. So thank you, everyone, and let's look for a better year this year.
That reminds me of one thing that I thought of when you were reading your statement, Kelly. Yesterday, the three of us in our swearing-in ceremony, we swear to uphold the United States Constitution, the Constitution of the state of Colorado, as well as the charter of the Pitkin County. The members of Congress and the president, for that matter, all also had such an oath where they swore to uphold the U.S. Constitution. Members of the armed services also swear that oath when they become members of the military, which I did more than 40 years ago. I swore that oath. Many members of Congress and the president, for that matter, I believe, are not upholding the Constitution right now, and I think they need to be held accountable. and that's what the process is going through. I think that the 25th Amendment should be invoked by the Vice President and the Cabinet members to remove the President from his position right now. They are seeming reluctant to do that, and that is driving the action by the House of Representatives to impeach the President at this time. So even if the President is not impeached until after he is no longer in office, it is still a meaningful action, because if he is convicted of the impeachment, he would no longer be able to run for public office, any public elected office in the country ever again. And that's so important because he keeps talking about how he's going to run again in 4 years for president. And it would also take away many or all of the benefits he would have as a former president, which are a huge amount of, millions of dollars of benefits that he would be able to retain if he is not impeached. I don't want him to see him get one more red cent from the United States taxpayers. So I'll leave it at that for now, and let's move on with the meeting. Our consent items, the first, let's see, I think we'll do the first item first, which is approval of the minutes of August 26th, December 16th, December 22nd, all of the year 2020, and January 4th of 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second, just with a comment, if we could clean up the spelling errors before they are filed.
Did you already tell Elaine?
Okay,
Not yet.
Okay, moved by Patty, seconded by Kelly. Kelly, do you have a list of the typo or the spelling errors that you could give to Elaine to clear up?
Yeah, I can work with her on it. I think just a quick spell check would catch all the commissioners with the I's and the missing S here and there, and it's kind of littered throughout.
Okay. Any further comments on the approval of the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Moving to the second item, this is a resolution appointing chair and vice chair, commissioner representatives to various boards, committees, and authorities. And John Peacock, could you introduce this, please?
Yeah, Steve. So every year at the first regular meeting, the board approves a resolution that appoints the chair of the board, vice chair of the board, and then board members serve on various appointments to represent the Board of Commissioners at different organizations. APSHA, ACRA, CCI, a number of organizations that commissioners are members of. I'm happy to pull up the appointment list if the board would like. This has been an item that the board's reviewed a couple of times, most recently yesterday. You should have all received a resolution through Charlotte this morning.
Greg?
Well, we have seen this a couple of times. Just to keep things moving, I'll make a motion to approve, and I guess it can be discussed if anybody wants to go. If anybody has cold feet.
I'll second, and I've reviewed it, and I'm okay with how it's written and presented.
Okay, it's moved by Greg, seconded by Patty. Just to note, there are some notable things in these appointments. The biggest one is that Kelly will be the new chairman, Patty will become the new vice chairman, and so that's pretty huge that I then will change seats, and we actually discussed yesterday how we are going to physically change seats in the commissioner meeting room when we're meeting in person in there again. And then Kelly will take over the remainder of this meeting. Also, because of the departure of George Newman, and he sat on some various boards like the Core Board and the RAPTA Board and the TPR, was our TPR representative, for many, many years. That made openings in those positions. So we did some major shuffling with people moving in to fill George's spaces, and then people moving in to become alternates to various organizations. So, you know, the landscape's going to look different at some of the boards where George was our representative and no longer will be, obviously. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm okay with all of the appointments we have. So any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, I'm gonna change seats here, Kelly, and you can take over the remainder of the meeting. And I'm gonna go skiing. Just kidding.
Good job, Steve.
All right.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Steve.
thank you,
Thank
Steve.
you. Thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, Steve, thanks. I've enjoyed, you know, getting together with you once a week and staff to sort out the agendas, make sure we're using time well, and just help teach me, you know, walk me through how to run these. I've had some practice this year, you know, so yeah, thank you. And I'll keep us moving along expeditiously. And I'll always aim to honor everyone's effort to provide input as well. So moving to, I guess we'll divide out the remainder of the consent items on the agenda. So Francie, ordinarily, if we wanted to, we could have approved items 1 through 4 with one motion, since they were on the consent agenda, but we often split them out to allow for some discussion. And since I know we'll want discussion at least on the highway user tax, we'll break them all out today. So I'll move on to item number 3, the resolution of the BOCC designating the official posting place for county meetings and agendas. And I see Julia Ely. Hi, Julia. If you want to give us a snapshot of this, please.
Sure. So, Julia Ely with the administration. This resolution designates the Pickens County website as the official posting place for official meetings and agendas. As part of the county response to COVID-19 through Resolution 021-2020, the county has been utilizing its website for notice purposes, and this proposed resolution will maintain that protocol.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Julia? Bless you, Patty.
Excuse me.
Steve?
Julia, the things used to be posted in the entrance to the county administration building. Will they still be posted there also, just a paper copy of what is being posted online?
I believe that they are just going to be posted online, but County Attorney John Ely can probably speak more to that than I can.
We haven't used the interior of the admin building since the building was closed to the public beginning of last March, I forget the exact date. The movement in Colorado law is to have all postings and notices done electronically and not have a physical posting location. I suppose if there's a concern with staff that we go back to using that in addition to the online posting, we can, but the official posting place going forward indefinitely until the board makes an action to change it will be the county website.
Okay, thank you. So I would move to approve this resolution designating the official posting place as the county website.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, I'll note all 5.
Thanks, Julia.
Moving on to resolution number 4, or, item number 4, resolution approving the 2020 list of highway user tax fund roads. And I see Brian Pettit from Public Works with us. Hi, Brian.
Hi. Hey, I'm standing in for Scott Mattice. As the board may or may not know, he is the logistics chief for the INT and is busy setting up infrastructure for the vaccination starting tomorrow. So given that, this is done annually with the board to certify all of the HUTF roads, highway user tax fund roads, that we hope this year generates about $1.2 million from the lane miles that we maintain. This involves both county roads and then about 100 miles of Forest Service roads that we maintain for the federal government. So again, it's what's done every year at this time, so the road and bridge can get about half of their funding in place for all the maintenance that we do.
Okay, any questions for Brian? Patty?
Brian, is this the format we need to all sign individually? Is that correct? So can we do that
That's correct.
Because we're all over the county, can we do that electronically, or can we, how do we get that done?
Yeah, it's a state form, so let me look into that, Patty, and if we can get electronic signatures to work for the state, we'll do that.
Okay, just let us know, because I know we need to sign and get that turned around. Thanks, Brian.
I'll do that. Yep.
Steve, you had a question for Brian?
That was my question also, thank you.
So, Francie. Oh, you're leaving? Is that why you're saying goodbye? Okay, enjoy your training. Thank you, Francie.
Bye, thank you.
Brian, I have a question, 2 questions. How much has this been reduced, or has it been reduced from 2019? And then are there any what are the changes to the road roster?
Yeah, the road roster, there were minor changes, nothing big, really administrative in nature. We have had no additions. We will likely have an addition this year given the width change on Castle Creek Road. So because we changed the width there, I think there's more lane miles that we could claim. That is not included here, but we hope to do that for 2022. Be that as it may, with regard to the list and what funding will be declined, I don't have the exact amount from last year. So, but it is going down based on basically the lack of people driving around and utilizing their vehicles.
Okay. All those commuter hours saved.
Sorry, I don't have the exact number for you though.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Brian? All right, then I'll look to a motion to approve, please. Steve?
Well, normally I do have a lot of questions, but I understand the process now. So I will make a motion to approve the 2020 list of highway user tax funds.
I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Brian. Okay, moving on to individual consideration items, and first reading set for, which will be set for a public hearing on January 27th. Ann Driggers, could you walk us through the resolution establishing the formula for distribution of the municipal share of county sales tax revenue for the year 2021? Hi, Ann.
Sure. Ann Driggers, Finance Director, Treasurer, and Public Trustee. I don't want to break the trend here, so this is something that happens at the beginning of every year for you that you approve. It's based upon a resolution that was decided upon in 1978, which basically says that the portion of the county-wide sales tax, 2%, is distributed and shared with our local municipalities. If you remember, we do have a 3.6% county-wide sales tax, but that's portion of that is for the transit, 1.5% transit, and 0.1% for healthy rivers and streams. And then the 2% county sales tax is just for all general government functions. So the agreement basically says that 43% of the 2% remains with the county, and the remaining 47% is shared amongst the municipalities based upon the sales tax that they collected themselves within the portion of Pitkin County on a 2-year rolling average up to from August to September. So the numbers are provided to us by the municipalities, and it basically for 2021 distributions, they come out as follows. Aspen is just slightly over 75% of the 47%, Snowmass slightly over 21%, and Basalt almost 3.5%. And if Basalt seems really small, it's just a portion of Basalt sales tax collected in Pitkin County, not in Eagle County, because Eagle County is obviously a much larger portion for them. So when you look at the full allocation of the 2% Pitkin County sales tax, Pitkin County retains just slightly more than Aspen at 43%. Aspen is 42.85%, Snowmass 12%, and almost 2% for Basalt. If we look at the history of it, it's kind of changes a little bit up and down each year, just depending upon how the share is between all of the municipalities. Basalt's seen a large increase, I think, in 2021 comparatively, and its percentage increase, I would say, but that's probably because they've done really quite well. I think you've noticed some of the news articles showing that they've done well with their sales tax collections. When we look at the 2021 budget in terms of actual dollars, what this means is that Aspen will get almost $11 million in sales tax. That's the budget if it all comes in as we hope. Snowmass a little over $3 million, Basalt almost $500,000, and Pitkin County retains about almost $11 million as well.
Okay, are there any questions for Ann? Steve?
And I added up the figures again.
I knew you would.
Just to double check. The one where Pitkin County is included with our 43%, all of those add up to exactly 100%, which is the one that really counts the way it's distributed. Right. The other one that's in the resolution, which only lays out for the 3 municipalities, is off by 1/1000th of a percent the way I added it. I don't think it matters in this case, for how it is actually distributed, because the other figure does add up to 100%. But I don't know, somebody got rounded up or down, obviously, by 1/1000th of a percent.
Okay, I will double check those numbers for the second reading.
Okay, thank you.
Greg?
I would just make a motion that we approve the formula for the distribution of municipal share of county sales tax revenue for the year 2021. It's required by Resolution 78-121.
And I will second that and set for a second reading and public hearing on January the 27th.
Before I call the question, I do have a question. And if this were to be negotiated, would that have to go to the ballot for all the voters in Pitkin County?
That, I think, is a question for legal. Okay. Or John.
And I guess I asked because there has been some conversation about, should we extend the child care, housing tax into Pitkin County? And I didn't know if there was a way to just negotiate that through this, or it reads like it has to go to the voters.
Something like that would have to go to the voters, Kelly. What this is Well, basically exactly what Ann has described it as. It's the continuation of an agreement that goes back to the establishment of the countywide sales tax for apportionment of the proceeds of that tax between ourselves and Snowmass Village and the city of Aspen. So if there is an expansion of any existing tax, the initiation of a new tax, the application of an existing tax to new locations, say within the county, all that would have to proceed through the voters.
And that would be the case if we wanted to, you know, say the county keeps 54% and then 46% goes to the municipalities. Would that too have to go to the voters?
The tax itself was established actually so long ago that the procedures for initiating the tax is different than they are now. But the agreement to share the proceeds of the tax was established at that time. If we want to back out of that agreement unilaterally, that would present all manner of problems. If we want to renegotiate it and talk to the city and to the town, our two partners, you know, we can always discuss the matter as far as the share goes, and even have an agreement to commit resources to a certain program. But to change the tax, its collection, or its sharing with the municipalities is something we cannot do unilaterally.
Sure. Okay, that presents a little bit of an interesting thing to contemplate. So thank you for answering that for me. Any further questions or discussion from the board? No? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Great. Moving on to item number 6, the resolution to accept the local parks and outdoor recreation grant from the State Board of Great Outdoors Colorado Trust Fund. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me. This is a good one. I'm Gary Tenenbaum, the Director of Pickens County Open Space and Trails. And today I have in front of you, we were successful in obtaining a GOCO grant. Now, this GOCO grant is for a special grant round that the Great Outdoors Colorado lottery funds put out. It was really to help communities address the impacts of COVID. And so when we saw this, RFOV, Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers, approached us and said, hey, could we get together and apply for this? Because the local government has to apply, and we could then significantly over double the amount of projects that we do in the Upper Valley in Pickens County and throughout Pickens County overall. And, you know, for us, we were like, this is great because COVID, as you all know, did things that we never expected. It basically, you know, opened the floodgates of use on our public lands. And, you know, I put in the packet, you know, some numbers for everybody to look at. You know, when the ski area is closed, you know, we saw a 91% increase in use of our trails and the Nordic trails and all our other trails. People were looking for a way to get out, and it was amazing. But as we looked through the whole summer, you know, we were up a total of over 42%. And that doesn't sound like a lot, or for me, it sounds like a ton. But, you know, it's hundreds of thousands of more use on our trails. Our hidden gems have been found. And what we saw was, because of social distancing and the amount of use, is there was some impacts. There was braiding on some trails. There's definitely braiding on a lot of trails, especially the heavier use trails. And, you know, we saw big impacts in the amount of, you know, enforcement contacts we had to deal with this year. And one of the things we lost this year is because of COVID, we weren't able to hire our full complement of maintenance crew because we couldn't separate them in trucks and ways to get to the projects. So we've got a backlog. And RFOB had a really difficult year because how do you do big volunteer projects when you're stuck in the land of COVID and group size limits and everything? So, you know, this is one of those scenarios where, you know, we could add, basically what this grant's going to do is provide another field coordinator for Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers so they can double their projects throughout the entire valley. Obviously, we get priority on one of those because we successfully did this grant. And so, you know, we're going to see a big increase in volunteer stewardship. To me, volunteer stewardship has been kind of the bedrock of what we try to do on our trails and properties. We need people to buy in to, you know, what it takes to maintain your public lands. Getting people out there is one of the best ways to do it. And honestly, what we have seen is when people give back, they want to support it more. And so this is, you know, hopefully this summer with, you know, vaccine being rolled out and some restrictions potentially being released, that we can do group projects out there. We'll still social distance people and put masks on where we need to, but we're hoping to really double the amount of volunteers that we have on our properties. I think it'll be good for the community. It'll be good for our trails. And honestly, you know, for us, this is one of our best partners is Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers. We've been partnering with them since the beginning, 25 years ago. And, you know, financially, we actually budget money every year to do projects. So we're just going to move that money into this grant match. So the grant match is about $10,000 for us, and we're just moving the money that we already budgeted to do that. So there's no financial impact to Open Space and Trails. We're going to dedicate some more staff time to it. But in the end, I believe this is going to be a huge win for the community, and I'm looking for you guys' support.
All right, questions for Gary, Patty?
Yeah, Gary, I think this is great. Thank you again for applying for these. You know, we've found that if you don't apply, it's an automatic no, and when we apply, it's amazing how much revenue we can bring into Pickens County for a great project such as this. I do have a question. Will this then come back to us in a supplemental budget to show the increase in funds so we can reflect it in the budget for 2021?
Yeah, most likely we'll have to do some type of supplemental. I don't know. I'll check with Connie. I can have that answered for you.
Okay.
At the second
I
meeting.
think we do, because we saw that at the end of the year, which was amazing how much money we had to actually put into our budget rather than take out of our budget. So the more the merrier, yeah. Gary, and anytime you feel the urge to apply for more grants, just let us know and we'll help back you up. Thanks.
Any other questions for Gary? Steve?
Well, Gary, the thing I'm concerned about is if we can get enough volunteers out if we have twice as many projects. And I personally will commit to getting out for a couple more projects. Last summer, I only made it to one barbed wire rolling up project, and that's all I could do health-wise all summer long. But this year I will have had the vaccination, and I am feeling better. And I love getting out and working on trails out in the back country, wherever they are. So I think if we can get a lot of people out there to commit to one or two projects, then we wouldn't have to worry about getting enough people.
And honestly, that's always a concern that we have, is being able to get enough people. But I do feel that after last summer, a lot of people who live here, you know, we actually see a lot of businesses, you know, we're going to do different. It's not going to just be show up for an 8-hour day. We're going to do night projects. We're going to do sponsored business projects. So the RFOB is going to use the full gamut to really get a bigger response. And, you know, honestly, with COVID, we don't want a project with 50 people on it. We'd love it, but we just can't. We're not going to be able to do that right away. So, you know, if we do a project with 10 people, we can get a lot done. And so we're just going to increase the number of projects to increase the number of chances that people can get involved. If we get 5, that's good. And if we get 10, 15, that's great. If we just do more, what we've also noticed if we do more projects, in the evenings, not on a Saturday when people have like 10 other things planned, but if we do things on like a Tuesday afternoon or a Tuesday evening, people show up. And if they just put in 2 or 3 hours, it's amazing. The whole airline trail was cut out last year, and we only got about 5 to 6 volunteers per night, maybe 10, but we got the whole trail cut out in 5 volunteer nights. So honestly, a little group can do a lot, and I'm hoping that by doubling the amount of projects, we can get a lot more people to get involved. And this is not just for Pickens County Open Space. The Forest Service is going to be able to take advantage of this too.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Gary? I'll look for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Steve. Can I have a second?
I'd like to move to approve.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll move to approve the resolution to accept the local parks and outdoor recreation grant from the State Board of GOCO.
I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. Any further discussion?
This is just first reading set for second reading, public hearing on the 27th of January. So we'll see you again soon, Gary.
Yes.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Great, thank you. Thanks, Gary. Moving on, item number 7, an ordinance approving a lease agreement with Response for space at the Michael W. Schultz Health and Human Services Building. And this is the first of, 6 lease agreements, I think, that we'll be hearing from Jody Smith on. Hi, Jody.
Hi, thank you. Jody Smith, Facilities Director. We have 6 leases that are at the Health and Human Services Building, the Aspen Homeless Shelter, Mine Springs Health, Recovery Resources, Response, Community Health, and Alpine Legal Services. Those are the ones that I'll be speaking to today. Alpine Legal Services is actually at the courthouse and not at Human Services anymore. So I can address each one individually for approval if you wish. But the only thing I really wanted to address in the change from our previous years is that historically, probably for the past maybe 7 years, 6 years, we've been charging $25.75 per square foot as an in-kind donation. I did a cost comparison in rent in the area, and we raised that to $30 per square foot this year in this lease. We know and understand that it's an in-kind donation, but it more reflects the actual cost and for our common areas and other factors. So this is more accurate for what the board is actually donating to each of these entities. So that's really the only change in these. And Madam Chair, would you like me to just do each one at a time?
So we'll have to vote on them all individually, but I think what I'll do is I'll ask the board if they have any questions on items 7 through 10, since those look identical, and then we'll pull out 11, 12, and 13 individually since they're a little bit different. So we have space for Response, the Aspen Homeless Shelter, Community Health Service, and Mine Springs Health, all updating lease agreements at the Health and Human Services Building. Steve.
I have a question about how we account for the in-kind rent contribution. Does that go through the Healthy Community Fund, or reflecting on a donation from the county to them in the Healthy Community Fund, or is it done through some other mechanism? And I don't think it really matters for the county as much. It could affect the fundraising efforts of the nonprofits who were giving the donation to.
John, can you maybe address that? I don't see Connie on the line.
John Peacock? Yeah.
Sorry, I was having trouble finding my buttons to come back onto the screen. So Steve, you did catch me responding to an email, but I understand your question to be how the dollars are accounted for.
The in-kind.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have to actually appropriate the in-kind leases. Those are appropriated, I believe, either in the Human Services Fund or in some cases the General Fund. Is that, Jody? I see you're shaking your head. To account for the value of those leases. It really depends on where the benefit might be accruing. And so for most of the nonprofit leases in the Schultz Human Services Building, I believe those are accounted for in the Human Services Fund, actually. We have others like our partnership with Mountain Family Health. I'm not sure if that lease is on here today, Jody.
It is not.
Yeah, that would be accounted for elsewhere.
Okay, so on the, say, for instance, on the Health and Human Services Fund, there would be a credit and a debit both for the same amount, in effect.
Yeah. It's not actually cash in and out, but it's to ensure transparency to the public about how county assets are being utilized.
Okay, thank you. I understand that all totally now. Appreciate that.
Are there any questions for Jody on these four? Jody, I have a question. Is there any difference between in the leases for the users, given their different types of use?
Mostly they're exactly the same. There might be a little bit of different wording for the Aspen Homeless Shelter on how they, on their security. And the only other thing that we did add in here too is that there's pets are not allowed in HHS unless they're a service dog. And we also did that at the courthouse, just given the nature of the security of the courthouse. But they're pretty much exactly the same.
Okay, so then at this point, let's move through and take votes on these four ordinances, and then we'll move through the next ones.
Can I ask a question?
Oh yeah, Patty has a question.
Is there any reason we're not including number 11?
Well, I had a question because they have space at both HHS and the courthouse.
The recovery resources?
Yeah. So their lease is a little bit different.
Oh, I see that tag at the end. Okay, all right. Yeah, I will move first for a motion to approve the ordinance lease agreement for response for space at the Michael W. Schultz Health and Human Services Building. And I'm just going to say these next four items are all set for second reading on January the 27th, when public hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay.
I got 4, okay. Number 8.
All right, I'll roll. I'm going to make a motion to approve ordinance approving a lease agreement with the Aspen Homeless Shelter for space at the Michael W. Schultz Health and Human Services Building.
I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And then next, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance approving a lease agreement with Community Health Services for space at the Michael W. Schultz Health and Human Services Building.
Second.
All right, Steve, mix it up. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And then,
Aye.
All right, you got 4.
I'll make another motion to approve the ordinance approving a lease agreement with Mind Springs Health for space at the Michael W. Schultz Health and Human Services Building.
Second?
Thank you, Steve. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving on to item 11, similarly, an ordinance approving a lease agreement with Recovery Resources for space at both the Michael W. Schultz Health and Human Services Building and the Pickens County Courthouse. So Jody, I guess I'll just, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead and present this.
Yeah, and my question, Jody, is why do they place in both locations logistically for them?
Right, so the basic overview for this is they started out.
Hang on a sec, we're having some feedback here. Let's see, is everybody on mute? Yes.
Jody, we've had this before with the computers. You may need to log back in. I don't know why that works, but it seems to.
All right, we'll just pause for a moment and let you rejoin us, Jody. Did she hear us? Okay. All right, we're just on a few second delay here, folks, as we look at our ordinances for our facilities director to rejoin the Zoom.
All right, am I back?
Yes, that sounds better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So yes, resource recovery. They started out in the Health and Human Services Building as just the detox center. They do drug testing and other functions for that work. What happened during the remodel and meeting with the judges, essentially Judge Ely really wanted to bring in a pretrial services. So they are actually providing pretrial services for the courts, and that is also, that's from the resource recovery. So we expanded their lease to take over a very small office in the courthouse to be able to provide those services for courts. And that's the only change, is that it's in both areas.
Okay, any other questions for Jody on this lease? Jody, have they been with us for a while? It's possible that this organization just didn't stand out to me.
Oh, no, this is a new program for the courts. If they did it before, it was more out of it wasn't formalized that I know about. I know that when we opened the building in late June and August is when they took over a spot in the building and formalized their process.
And I may not have understood the question, but Recovery Resources has been doing detox for us for a while, but they have more recently taken on case management responsibilities in the jail. So that is a more recent addition to their services.
Steve.
So I'd like to make a motion
Thank you.
to approve the ordinance approving the lease agreement with Recovery Resources for space at the Michael W. Schultz Health and Human Services Building and the Pickens County Courthouse.
I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. Any further discussion?
I'll make my comment. This is a first reading, set for second reading and public hearing on January the 27th.
Thank you, Patty. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to number 12, ordinance approving a lease agreement with Alpine Legal Services.
Yes, Alpine Legal Services is renting an office in the courthouse. It's actually Joe DeSalvo's old office. They have, it's very busy space. They are getting a lot of visits every day. My office is right next door, so I've been watching that. And yeah, they used to be out at Health and Human Services, so they've been tenants for a long time providing this service to the community. And we're just looking to continue it. We just relocated them.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Jody on this lease? Jody, I have a question. I noticed all these leases are for 1 year. Do we ever consider a longer term lease?
We used to have a 5-year lease, and for some reason that got changed about 2 years ago. But that was also when it was just Health and Human Services. I know that it would certainly be easier on our staff and less impact on probably the lessees and us if we went to a multi-year, but I would be looking for any kind of direction on that from this board.
Okay.
I would favor doing a longer term lease, 2 years or 5 years or whatever. I mean, these organizations have been with us for a long time, and we could put wording, and there probably already is wording in there, that if they terminate their relationship with the county, that there's a way that the lease would be terminated then.
Thank you. Greg?
Well, since John Ely and staff are probably ones who end up having to look at these when something doesn't go right, I'd love to hear his opinion.
There's no reason not to do a longer term. I thought the change was made actually at the request of the board, that you guys wanted to see them on a more frequent basis.
Okay.
But it's certainly up to the board to decide what the term is to be that's offered.
Mm-hmm. Patty?
Yeah, I think this is worthy of further discussion, so I'm going to suggest to the new chair that maybe we bring this back at some point in a work session, discuss it, come up with a term that's agreeable to all parties, and then next year when we go through, we can extend these leases for a longer period of time if that's the direction the board and staff decide to go.
Okay. I have noted that for future agendas. John Peacock, did you want to chime in? Do you see any hazard here?
That was a no.
Okay. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there any reason that we couldn't extend those today? Make a 2 or 3 year lease and get it started now, rather than, if we've been through this. But I'm sorry to rush it. I'm just wondering if it's necessary to bring it back again if we don't need to.
Well, this is set for second reading. We could certainly make that adjustment if it's okay with John for a second reading, and just make it a multi-year, and we can determine, maybe just make it 3 years. It's better than
I was going to propose we amend it to do a 3-year reading, and then at second reading we could examine it and then to get it off the table.
Patty, you had a comment?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with 3 years, but for me, I'd like to see how the lessees feel about 3 year or 2 year or 5 year before we make the change. I mean, they're parties to this agreement, but the rest of the board wants to just roll it through now and throw a dart at a number, that's fine, but I just think it might be valuable to talk to all the parties involved and affected.
Sure, and we could do that before second reading, right?
If we have time to get out there, but it has to be posted for second reading, I believe, next week. So everybody's busy now, and I don't know if we have time to get in touch with all the parties and bring it back for discussion, but.
Jody, did you have other comment?
Jody?
Yeah, historically, when we had leases, we did have a 5-year lease with all of these tenants except for Resource Recovery, and I think they all appreciate it. It gives them more security and planning when they know they have a little longer lease. So I don't see it being a problem, but I could certainly just call these this week and make sure that they're all amendable to that for second reading.
And Jody, I have a question. Is there any reason to extend different times to different lessees?
I don't think so, not in these nonprofits. You know, the board stated, I mean, there's language in there in case there's something that needs to change in the future, whether somebody needs to vacate or break the lease with us, or we need to break it with them. And there's always, there's language in there that helps us maneuver through that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, Greg.
Was a motion made? Patty, did you make a motion, or should we make one? I'd be willing to make one and put the 5-year lease on it, but if we want to say 3, we could move for 3. But I wasn't sure if you already made that motion.
Well, so I'll just note that we've already approved 4 of the, or 5 of these. So this would be a change that I think needs to come back during second reading, based on, you know, Jody's conversations with the lessees on the term limit.
Okay, so I don't need to make a motion. We just need to
we
give
do
direction,
need
come back
to
at second reading with 3 to 5 years in mind.
We do need to approve the Alpine Legal Services lease. So I guess I would recommend we just approve it as written, and then if there's a change on the term limits, that comes back at second reading, if that sounds good to everybody.
Did we make a decision on how many years?
I don't believe we did. I thought that Jody was gonna speak with the lessees about a preferred time, somewhere between 2 and 5 years. Jody?
Yeah, and what I would do, Kelly, is I'll check with the tenants, but before I check with the tenants, I'll make sure that our Health and Human Services is in support of that as well, at a staff level and as a building management and future, planning their future building. So I'll double check with them first.
Okay. Does that sound good to the board? Just looking for some head nods. John Ely, am I doing this procedurally accurately? Okay. Okay. So I'll look for a motion on the Alpine Legal Services lease as written currently, and any changes will come back at second reading.
So moved, with second reading set for January 27th.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you, Steve. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all. Moving on to our last lease. This has to do with a whole different building. So our lease with Subway Real Estate LLC.
Thank you. Yes, this is actually an amendment, a modification to the lease that is current with Subway Real Estate LLC. The owners of the Subway located at 123 Emma Road have requested a reduction in their rent. Note that they have been a lessee with us for a long time, well, with the previous owner, and then we took over that lease. That lease doesn't expire until 2025 already. And they are struggling right now due to the COVID impacts of not having indoor dining or reducing that space. Yeah, they're a carryout mostly, but I think just with the reduction in the workforce out, you know, in the field and the construction, that they've just seen a real decrease in their revenues. So they've asked if this board would approve them a reduction in their rent for the first 6 months of the year. They're not asking for longer than that. And it's a 50% reduction in their first 6 months. And that equates to $8,617.32. That would, we would not be collecting of their rent. So, and then come July 1st, they would start paying their full rent again, and then all the other terms of the lease would be in place. I have to apologize in advance. I forgot to ask Charlotte to invite the owners to join this meeting, but I can certainly have them join at second reading if you guys have additional questions for them. But I neglected to do that for this meeting. So, and we're open for questions.
All right, Greg, and then Steve.
Yeah, I'm just recollecting our conversation with the Stubby's Bar people. And I want to make sure that however this is constructed, it is seen to be done in fairness and equity with the agreements we made with Stubby's. Otherwise, we're going to hear back from them. And I don't recall the terms. I think we did a 3-year lease with Stubby's at a reduced rate or something like that. So this is only 6 months, but it seems like a more substantial reduction. How do we compare these two so that we don't have them coming back and demanding equity?
Jody?
The difference between these two leases is that Stubby's lease actually expired. So we created a brand new lease for them with a year term limit. And in their first year, they had a reduction. I forget what the percentage was, maybe 12%. I'm sorry, I don't remember. And then this is the difference here is that this is an existing lease, and their term won't change. That they'll still be termed to 2025. But they're just asking for a reprieve for this 6 months so that they could try to get caught up and make it on their own. Go ahead.
Got it. I think to follow up on that, I'm not convinced that by July things are going to be back to normal. I don't know if they're anticipating we'll just be back to business as usual by July, but I don't know. It could be we have a very busy summer again, so maybe they'll be fine. But that's something I'd like to know, just so we're not extending again until September or for another year, whatever. It'd just be nice to have a real clear idea. I'm certainly supportive of helping them, but I just want to make sure we're doing it in the right way.
I think the difference here is that the bar business was hit much differently than this business here. The bar business was closed down completely for a period of time. And then they had to modify their service to actually provide takeout food, which was not, wasn't their normal deal. But this sandwich shop, they feel like this is what they need. They did have a deferred payment. They did pay their deferred payment. They're current. So, yeah.
Steve, go ahead.
Patty was first. Go ahead, Patty.
Yeah, just real quick. Greg, I understand your point, but I think that if things don't change in July, we're going to all be in big trouble. So if there's an issue, then they're more than welcome to come back and we can renegotiate terms that might be more appropriate at that time.
Okay. Steve?
So my question has to do with construction next door in the former Chinese restaurant. Are we doing construction right now? And if so, it seems like that could be disruptive to the subway just from noise and vibrations or that kind of thing. Is that happening, Jody?
Thank you for asking that question. We're still in the planning and design phase. Construction is, actually Hope House is scheduled to vacate the space at the end of February. And then we're not expected to start the construction and demo work until June or July. So it'll probably be after that point. It'll actually bring in more business to them because of all the construction workers.
Jody, my question.
Okay, and I think if we just keep in mind to try to minimize the impact on the subway from construction, traffic and noise and dust and whatever happens during that process, that would be good to keep in mind.
Jody, my question is, are these the owners of this franchise based locally?
They're in Denver.
Denver. Okay. It's interesting. I guess I wonder about, how the national franchise is supporting them during this COVID as well. So that, I would be interested if they could join us for second reading. It'd be nice to hear from them. Any other questions for Jody? No, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, set for a public hearing and second reading on the 27th, and extend the invitation to the LLC representative to be part of our Zoom meeting at that time.
Second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, moving on. Thank you, Jody. Nice to see you. Moving on, item number 14, for first reading set for public hearing January 27th, an ordinance repealing and reenacting the Pickens County Procurement Code. And I see Chris. Hi.
There we go. Hey, good afternoon. Coming to you live from the vaccination site in a trailer, so I apologize if there's any noise in the background or if I get shut off or anything. So the reason for bringing this before you is that the original procurement code or the previous procurement code has not been updated since 2005. And in that time, procurement was largely decentralized, and we were kind of a standalone department. Of course, this predates my time with the county. But since then, we've been filed within the finance department. So with this code update, we've recodified from Title 13 to fit within the finance code, which is Title 3. And then also just cleaning up the formatting, and with that recodification, just kind of bringing it up to the rest of the county's standard formatting for codes. The largest change that took place has already come before the board in late 2019 to go into effect January 1 of 2020, which was increasing the small purchasing limit from $10,000 up to $24,999. So that has already been provisionally approved and has gone into effect as of last year. The other changes are pretty much just cleanups of language, removing duplications, any ambiguous language, and then also kind of broadening some of the ethical aspects of the procurement code. Again, with it being decentralized, not just calling anyone purchasing on behalf of the county, not calling them out as a procurement officer, but just as a responsible, fiscal fiduciary of the county's money. Other changes have, again, just broadening from federal and state regulations for purchasing or grant funds, broadening that to any requirements of the grant funding or the revenue source. And that's about it for the changes, really. It was just a restructuring and cleaning up and kind of bringing it up to 2021. So with that, I'll open it for questions.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Patty?
Yeah, Chris, I'm sure this has been done, but I didn't see it reflected in the agenda item summary. So in raising the no procurement necessary to $49,999.99, I'm assuming that we then adjusted the next level to reflect that 50,000, because we need to have it ratcheted up, because prior to that, it would have been $10,000 for the next level of procurement process. So it needs to reflect that we've taken the no procurement threshold to $49,999.99. Right?
The small purchase or the no procurement threshold is the only one that we adjusted up. We left the informal threshold, 25,000 up to just under 50,000, and we maintained the requirement for formal RFP at 50,000 or above. So neither of those two changed. They're still in full effect.
Okay. So we don't have an overlap there in the middle. We start the next level at 50,000.
Correct, yep.
Perfect. Okay,
Both
thank you.
25,000 to 50 and 50 and up.
Right. Okay.
Steve?
Chris, with this raise to $25,000, do you still review those, like the invoices from those, just to make sure that they're bona fide and following the rules?
So kind of our catch for that is if they elect not to put it under contract, we still we don't say, no, we're not gonna put it under contract if it's less than 25. If you feel that there's a risk, or if we assess that there's a risk, or the terms and conditions on the agreement, would put us in any kind of, financial hardship, then we will, push the people or the departments to put it under contract still. But kind of our catch-all on the back end is our, accounts payable process. So they're very good at, warning us generally ahead of time before someone would go over $25,000 with a vendor. So as they're approaching that threshold, they'll let us know, and we'll jump on it and get a contract in place. Does that answer your question, Steve?
So other than that, if it's below 25,000, it's the department's responsibility to do it responsibly and keep track of it and make sure it's in their budget and all those sorts of questions. And it does come to you then.
Correct, but anecdotally, they've been, all departments have been very good at coming to us when they see that there would be kind of any risk presented. So if there's any kind of construction, if it's IT related, they'll come to us and have us review the terms and conditions, and then on occasion get the attorneys involved to review before we would recommend that they sign that without a contract.
Okay, so that sounds good. There's still plenty of oversight, and it sounds like a good system to me.
Well, we're working on strengthening that through process rather than putting it in the code. But yeah, we're still reviewing how to kind of streamline that referral to us for risk assessment, and then also how to assess the risk. But that'll be handled in process versus code.
Okay.
Greg, did you have a question for Chris?
No questions, but I support this, and I'd make a motion to approve the ordinance repealing and reenacting the Pitkin County Procurement Code with second reading set for January 13th. Public hearing.
January
27th.
27th.
Oh,
Today's
why
the
did I have
13th.
13th on it?
That's today.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hello.
That was quick.
Greg. Yeah. I thought it was January 31st. That's how my eyes are crossing. Sorry.
I'll second your motion, Greg, with the 27th being the Sunday we're talking about.
Not what I said. What I meant. Yeah, thank you.
I do have a couple questions before I call the question. So, Chris, on Steve's line of thinking, is $5,000 still the credit card limit for employees, and they would have to request anything above that, so nobody's charging $25,000 on their card?
Correct, and that's a separate, I believe that's written in a policy, not into a code, but that's more managed by accounts payable. But I believe that is still the process, yes. It's $5,000 until they request an increase.
And then is there any best practices around this sort of no threshold number? For a county with a budget of a certain size, your no threshold number should be something, or with a number of employees?
It varies by municipality. The states or the federal government is 250,000, so that's not a very good comparable there. Yeah. But for reference, I know that Garfield County, they're required to do an RFP and do formal procurement for anything over 25,000, and I just don't know that would work with just Tyler. So it's Tyler and myself. We're a two-man department. I don't think we would have the capacity to do that strenuous of procurement. And it's just the volume of small projects that we have going through the county. I really think this helps to keep things moving and not bog it down with contract review and trying to get all of that paperwork in place. I can come back in second reading with some more comparables throughout the state if that would help.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wasn't sure if there was like the general accounting office principals had any statement related to this. So it sounds like you're saying they're
not that I'm.
Okay.
Yeah, they just kind of vary, right?
Yeah. And then
so I'll get some comparables.
A question about how we're referring to this. Should we be calling it the 2021 procurement code? I'm a little confused when I look at the ordinance, because it says the 2020 procurement code, and then it has the dates of enactment as of 2021. So I just want to be clear on what we should be calling this.
So full disclosure, this is my first time bringing an ordinance before the board, so I don't know how to answer that. If it would be more appropriate to update that to 2021, I can certainly do that before second reading.
And I'll look to John Ely. Do you have any thoughts, or should Chris and Jeanette get together on this? No, that's, okay. Chris, maybe just touch base with Jeanette on that question to clarify if that needs to change before second reading.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? No, I'll call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Thanks, Chris.
Aye.
All right, Chris, nice to see you. Thanks for helping
Thank you. Have a
with
good
the
afternoon.
Stay warm out
IMT.
there.
I'll try. Bye.
Okay, moving on to individual consideration items. Public hearing and one reading. It looks like this next item is going to be continued, item number 15. John Ely, anything to say about this?
No, I wasn't involved with that license. I know of it, but Jeanette has been processing it, and I assume from the continuation that the ownership is still putting together all of their information. But other than that, I don't know anything.
Okay, I will look for a motion to continue.
Well, I'll make a motion, but it's listed as a public hearing, so do we still need to
yes.
open that and continue it? It's a single
Okay,
read. So
Thank you. Okay, yep, I will open the public hearing on this item. An application for a medical clinic marijuana license requested by the Southwest Alternative Care located at 24505 Highway 82 in Basalt, Colorado. John, do you know the general location of this, just for the public that's listening?
Holland Hill?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay. In Basalt on Highway 82.
I think it might be Holland Hills area, but I'm not sure about, that light industrial building, but.
Yeah, it's in the Holland Hills area.
Okay, thank you, John Peacock. Okay, so this is listed for a public hearing today, so before we continue it, I've opened the public hearing, and I'll give it a minute. We don't have anyone currently called in.
God, I didn't even get through my 3 peanut butter cups. Good job.
Moving us along. Okay, I will look for a motion to continue this item and the public hearing to January 27th, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay.
That was a second, Steve. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of continuing, please say aye.
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 Okay. Okay, moving on to individual consideration items and public hearings for second reading. Number 16, an ordinance authorizing the chair to execute the necessary documents to convey Pickens County's Cougar Canyon out parcel. And John Ely, you can take it away, or update us on this one.
Thanks, Kelly. This is the second reading of an ordinance that was accepted on first reading back in December 16th, I think was our last regular meeting. And it was continued for today's date for the public hearing and for a second reading on the adoption of the ordinance. What I would ask the board to do today, however, is to continue the matter for 2 weeks until January 27th, our next regular meeting. I've been in contact with representatives of the contracted buyer and who have been doing quite a bit of work on their due diligence. They would like to present I guess a list of concerns that they have going forward by the end of this week, and then have the county respond to those concerns. Given the fact that if there is something that that merits change, from our point of view, from the county's point of view, it would be easier to effect that without adopting this ordinance and locking us into place. We would simply have to restart the process all over again. If we can continue it for 2 weeks, it keeps the ordinance alive, and any changes that might be necessary or authorized by the BOCC could be effected at that time. Hopefully I'll be able to fill the board in more completely next week at the Tuesday meeting and during or on Tuesday the 19th, and the board can discuss the matter there.
Okay, any questions for John Ely on this? Okay, we're down a commissioner. So, we still have a quorum. I will open the public hearing on this since it is a public hearing and give it a minute.
So John Ely, does this mean I might get my value that I wanted to get out of this parcel if we wait 2 weeks?
You never know, Patty.
Never hurts to try.
Okay, we will continue the public hearing and the second reading on this item, and I will look to the board for a motion to continue those until January 27th.
So moved.
Thank you, Patty. Patty moved. May I have a second? Steve, a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll talk about Cougar Canyon more on the 27th. Moving
Thanks, Kelly.
Yes, thank you, John. Moving us along to land use public hearings. These will be short, I believe, as well. So item number 17, WSC Land LLC, GMQS exemption for commercial development with insubstantial growth impacts and site plan review. It appears they're requesting a continuance, and I see Suzanne here. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, happy New Year.
You too.
I don't think I have anything to add. The applicant has received comments from neighbors, the Metro District. For those of you who are not familiar, I guess the property is the Woody Creek Station, which is what some know as the Aspen Village gas station. But so they've received some comments from the Metro District and the homeowners that they're working to respond to. So they asked for some additional time before they come before you. So it's to be continued to the 10th of February.
Okay, thank you. Since this is a public hearing, I'll give it a minute to see if there's any public comment on the request for continuation. Okay, no one has called in. I will look to the board for a motion to continue this item in public hearing to February 10th.
So moved.
So moved.
Greg, is that a second? Patty moved, Greg seconded. Any further discussion from the board? This helps explain why we're getting these emails from folks. I was like, when is this coming before us? So thank you. All right, all in favor of the continuation, please say aye.
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 Okay. Our second land use public hearing, item number 18, an ordinance of the BOCC conditionally rezoning certain real property on Richmond Ridge owned by the United States and the Aspen Ski Company from agricultural residential 10 acre and rural remote zone districts to ski recreation zone district, and amending the zoning map to reflect this change. This is a request to continue the second reading on this item to April 28th of this year. Suzanne, anything to add?
Sure, I can give you just a quick update. Obviously, this has been sort of a placeholder for a while now, where we've been pushing this. The ski company has brought in some additional information related to the Pandora area rezoning that is currently scheduled to go to the P&Z on the 2nd of February. So the process is starting to move again. When it does get through the P&Z and comes back before you, we will fully renotice at that time. I don't know if that will be the right date or not. It may be, somewhere, it certainly wouldn't happen sooner than that. So again, just to let you know, the process is starting, and we'll be back in front of you sometime in the near future, and we will renotice at that point. But for now, we have been continuing this, so I think it's appropriate to at least continue the ordinance as it had been presented to you back in 2019 at this point.
Okay. I have some questions. Patty, do you need to recuse yourself on this
If
item?
you're gonna have questions specific to this item, I will recuse. Are you gonna be a while, Kelly, or I'll just step
do have
into
a
the
few
side
questions,
room so
but-
I can come back in for open discussion.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Mhm.
Because I didn't even have it on my agenda. They already recused me, so.
Okay, so Patty Clapper has recused herself on this item due to family members employed by SKICO. Any questions for Suzanne on this? Greg?
Just Suzanne, so I understand you said they're gonna bring it back, and it's been a while since we've looked at this, and I'm just wondering, what can we anticipate in terms of this, picking this application back up? Is there a lot of new information, or anything you can share with us on what's been happening, or do we just wait till like April 28th to find out?
I think what I can share is, it's definitely, public record at this point. They have provided additional information in support of the request for the rezoning, similar to what you saw before. So they've provided some additional information addressing master plan consistency, as well as the changed conditions. So those were kind of the two major criteria that were under discussion related to the rezoning. Obviously, then there are also the other pieces, if rezoned, that then relate to putting this within the master plan for Aspen Mountain.
Got it. Has any other organization or group or neighborhood added any new information?
The information that's been submitted has been referred out in anticipation of this upcoming Planning Commission meeting. So the information is definitely out in the public at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Steve?
Suzanne, because Francie is new on the board now and George is gone, I think the wise thing to do when they bring this back to us is to do a whole presentation on the remaining part. They probably would do that anyhow, but just to get it on our radar that we need to get Francie up to speed on the whole issue. Also then how it relates to the master plan that we did approve is something that you need to refresh our memories on, I think, at that time.
Yeah, definitely. We'll make sure we're prepared for that.
And then I have a couple questions, Suzanne. So when is this scheduled to go to planning and zoning? Is it on their calendar yet?
February 2nd.
February 2nd. Okay, and then so if they're going to planning and zoning again, does that process eliminate our continuation of a second read? Or will they just, is our second reading, the continuation of our second reading, still on the table? Because we had, a vote or a motion that had been made, but a vote that had not been called, that I understand to be continued. So what is the status of that point in the process if planning and zoning is coming back with a new recommendation?
I don't know if John wants to jump in on that, but as I said, we know when we come back to you, we will renotice because essentially at that point it would be, again, a rezoning ordinance in front of you as well as a resolution related to the master plan as well. So I guess maybe John can help in terms of what that means for the ordinance that was previously in front of you.
Well, it kind of depends on what the ski company finally settles on. If this is a new application, so to speak, not necessarily new under our land use code definition, but new with different aspects, then essentially what we're going to be doing by renoticing is going to be starting over. And the previous ordinance that was reviewed by the board or offered for review for the board and the pending motion that was left pending at the time of the initial continuance and the repeated continuation of this matter would still be pending. It would not be pending if it's essentially a new application. If this is coming back in with additional facts or additional argument, additional justification, whatever, for the board to take an action of acceptance of the code change, of the zoning amendments, and of the application for the expansion of the ski area and a mountain management plan, then it would pick up right where it left off. We would be still entertaining the same substance. We would have to refresh our recollection, of course, what happened way back when, and we would do that publicly so that the public would be aware of all the discussion and the actions and the motion that was made back then. But we would pick it up right where we left off.
Okay. Because I'll just say, I have some concerns about whether an administrative tactic can undermine, our motion as it is on the table. I feel like the board should have some purview in that decision as to whether the threshold is met for a new motion altogether or to just continue the conversation that we had started. So I do have some concerns about that. And I guess I'll just say, I'll look for a complete explanation of that when it comes before us, as well as any justification for how this crosses some threshold to be a new application. Okay. Okay, so this also is a public hearing, and I will go ahead and open the public hearing on this matter and give it a minute or so to see if anyone wants to call in and comment on the request to continue this item to February 28th, or excuse me, April 28th. Okay, just a reminder, that's how long you should wash your hands here in COVID world. So I will look for a motion to continue this item in the public hearing to April 28th.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
You're gonna second, Greg, thank you. Okay, all in favor of the continuation, please say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Okay, that's a 3-0. And this gets us to the end of our regular agenda. Thank you. Suzanne, nice to see you. Happy New Year. Patty, come on back in. We're just moving on to open discussion. And so I'll look to John Peacock. Any open discussion items for us this afternoon?
No, Kelly. Nothing since yesterday.
Okay, any members of the board have open discussion items? All right, I do, sorry. I know we're looking for a record short meeting here at the start of the year, but I guess I have two topics of concern. both sort of having to do with security and enforcement, I guess. The first being, you know, I'm hearing from colleagues in other communities about recommendations to them for extra security related to the inauguration next Wednesday. I don't know if they have closed their buildings, if that's why they are contemplating that, but I just want to check in about what is appropriate here, or, you know, conversation, I guess, with the sheriff's office if there's anything of concern that we should be talking about.
So right now, due to COVID restrictions, most of our buildings are shut down. So the sheriff and admin building is closed except to employees, and the doors are locked. Human services is limited to employees and clients, and we do have some security on site. But Kelly, we can certainly consult with the sheriff's department on any additional steps. I think you had some preliminary discussions with the sheriff along those lines, and see if there are any recommendations there. But certainly if the board is having concerns or specific concerns, we can try and address those.
Okay. Yeah, I would just, I guess at this point, without any knowledge specific to Pickens County, you know, maybe an additional encouragement for any employees that should and can work from home on that day, to be reminded to do so as extra precaution. Because I know some people just like to come in because they can and it's quiet, and you know, maybe next Wednesday is not the day to do that. Any other concern thoughts from the commissioners?
As far as the courthouse, which would be the more prominent of the county buildings, I think that's worthy of checking in with Joey to see what the courthouse schedule is and how the judges and staff who are in that building feel about any extra precautions that might be worth considering and or taking. So I think we should look into that with the SO and with the courthouse security.
Greg?
John, I'm trying to remember if we saw some communication from the Colorado State Patrol regarding security issues. And perhaps it was around the last week after the events on the 6th, but have we had a dispatch from them regarding their plans regarding security, or I was just kind of anticipating we'd hear from them again regarding inauguration.
Yeah, and I'm just doing an email search here to see if we've gotten anything, at least if I've been copied on anything new, and I'm not finding anything.
No? Okay. And then the second item, I just want to check in related to, you know, tensions are running high in the community. Do we have any reasons to be concerned that we'll need additional enforcement around the public health order?
You know, I think certainly tensions are running high there, Kelly, and certainly there are some reports and such that there may be you know, clearly objections, potentially folks you know, not adhering to the public health order. We have been building our enforcement capacity, and you know, we will look for cooler heads to prevail. We are going to be meeting with the sheriff's department on enforcement ahead of the new public health order going in.
Okay. And I know I had heard Kurt Dahl sort of mention some, you know, advice seeking about from Open Space and Trails and how they've managed to stand up their own enforcement efforts. So is there anything new to report out there about in-house public health enforcement efforts?
No, those are the conversations that we're having with law enforcement and such.
Okay.
I do have one thing
Yeah,
to add,
Patty.
separate from this. Are you done with that?
Mhm.
I just want people to be aware, for people who don't get the Pickens County alert, there is another ice jam issue that has come up, which is kind of early in our season. It's an alert based on the Roaring Fork River through Sunday. So people who might be out along the river, or river users, fishermen, anglers specifically, please keep your eyes and ears and actually stay out of the river basin because of ice jam and floodwaters. The release just came through. It is for all areas of river users from Snowmass Canyon to Carbondale. Please be aware. So just a heads up for the public who may be listening in on this meeting. Want everybody to be safe no matter what your activities might be these days. We're getting hit in all directions.
Yep. I know, let's hope for more snow. We need it. Yeah, Greg?
Yeah, thanks for opening this up, Kelly. John, I was invited to chair the community meeting tomorrow evening, and I'm prepared to do that. But I thought we should. I haven't seen an agenda or a preparation yet. Didn't really expect one just yet. But I know it would be very useful to try to address and restate a lot of the things we're doing to try to help mitigate the stress we're causing by this closure from the Board of Health. And so I just wanted to say I look forward to having that conversation probably with you and with Public Health going into this as we put that meeting together. And I'm really interested in looking for every possible way we can alleviate the stress, and also prepare for the eventuality that this closure of indoor dining doesn't do enough. What's next on our palette of tools we can reach for, and should we be aware of them and start now? If there's anything else we can be doing to reduce the human contact which creates the transmission of the virus. Just thinking, sooner we start on that, the better, because I'm not counting on this alone to be the silver bullet. That was a question I wanted to put forward. I don't expect an answer, but I'd love to have that be part of the conversation tomorrow.
I would just say, I think that's a fair question, Greg. I mean, managing expectations is always better than not. I've given you my menu of what I think are options to consider.
Well, I'm going to try and get a little brighter light into, we need to be able to, there are dire circumstances out there, I think we all agree, but we need to maybe find some light in the middle of this darkness that's before us. Our numbers they are for at least 24 hours, are trending down. I mean, we need to take advantage of every moment we get lower numbers, and it doesn't mean we let up on our actions and our activities, but we need to give people a little hope that there is not only a light at the end of the tunnel, but there is a tunnel we can actually maybe be viewing through these days. So I think people need to be diligent, observe the public health restrictions as they are outlined now. It doesn't mean that they may not change to be more tight or less tight. We have to evolve as the virus evolves or devolves, whichever direction it may be going. But, I'm trying to keep that positive attitude out there, because at this point, we've got to have a little positivity in our lives, because if we continue to dwell on the negative, it's only going to drive up our issues of depression and domestic, child, drug, alcohol abuse, because people are walking that fine line. So hang in there, guys.
Steve.
Going back to your original point you brought up, Kelly, in my mind, I always think about what would I do if an armed person came into a room I was in. And I started thinking about this back on the day of the Columbine massacre when I was teaching public school. So ever since then, I've always thought, what would I do if an armed person came in? You know, what would I physically do to try to disable them, to hide, to run, to call for help? What do? You have to think about that ahead of time. And so, in light of what happened in the Capitol building on January 6th, I start thinking, what would I do if we were all in a meeting room in our administration building and we see a group of armed people coming down the sidewalk towards our building? And it's you know, a frightening prospect to think about that, but I think if we think through that process ahead of time in terms of the security of our building and what procedure would we follow, we would be better off if it actually does happen. I hope something like that never does happen, but I guess what partly started me thinking about that would be if our congresswoman wanted to come and meet with Pickens County commissioners, which I don't foresee that happening, but it could, because we have had requests from other Congress people to meet with us. And then if she wanted to bring her, her sidearm with her, which she is prone to do, what is our policy about that? So I guess my request is to look at our, we don't need to have the update now, but if we could get at some meeting in the near future an update on what is the county policy about firearms, open carry, and concealed weapons. I know our concealed weapon ban ended on December 31st. I did get another email from somebody from the group that was sending us the multitudes of emails about that. So it's still fresh on my mind about what happens when someone, even if it's our congressperson, shows up with a weapon.
Kelly, we had talked about having a meeting to discuss guns on on county property when we did that, the gun ban for the election. So that's something we need to be looking at. I think we need to look at how we can enforce. There's a lot of issues to discuss: the concealed, the open weapon carry, what control the county actually does have, and then if we were, like, we can do it at the courthouse because we already have a security system and a metal detector in place. It's my understanding that to be able to do that anywhere else, we'd have to look at those kind of options and opportunities in order to enforce. So it's a broader discussion, and I think that's something we need to put on a future agenda and start soliciting public comment that actually has people's names and addresses attached to it, rather than just pre-printed emails that people are flipping to us from the Front Range without really knowing who they're coming from.
I'm noting this down. I will say a conversation around this might be helpful for legislative action too, that I think is being considered for this session.
Perfect. We can combine it together.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve, for bringing that up.
Okay. I don't know if that was the light note you wanted to end on, Patty.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah,
we're supposed to
starting
get
off
snow.
a real serious year here. Yeah, and we just have to care for each other amongst all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Good of the cause? No?
I will be more than happy to make a motion to adjourn Kelly's first meeting as chair.
I'll second. I'll third the motion.
Okay, all in favor of
Good
adjournment?
job, Kelly.
All right, aye. Thank
Aye.
you, guys.
Aye.
Be safe. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, you too.
And although the cakes are not necessary, we certainly will think more highly of you if you provide cake on a regular basis.
I know, I wish I
He was
could.
shaking his head. He's like, oh my God.